I think we'll go ahead and get started. We've waited about 5 minutes. We might see some others trickle in. I know that these sessions are back to back. But I will go ahead and begin and just welcome you here. Thank you so much for coming to this think tank. So my name's Dr. Jacob Burdis. A little bit of my background. You didn't come here to hear my background, but I'll just give you enough context. So I got my undergrad in Russian and linguistics. Language has always been a passion of mine. And then I was able to do a master's degree while working for a university in their intensive language center, focusing on instructional psychology and technology. So the merge between taking principles of cognition and learning and how those apply best in a digital and technology setting. And I was always focused on language, and language assessment became a really big passion of mine. So for my dissertation, I focused on how to assess speaking. Speaking is one of the most difficult things to assess because there's so much subjectivity involved and so much spontaneity. It's really hard to have an automated or computer system that can take into account the virtual unlimited possibilities of human speech. Every day, someone's saying something that's never been said before, and that's really hard to pick up on and assess for.
Hi, how are you?
But we have great ways to do it. Hello. Thanks for joining. We're doing some quick introductions. So I got my PhD and I worked a little bit for a university before briefly I went to an ed tech company who focused on providing technology training in a personalized and customized way. And it was there that I began the idea for the company now Emmersion, for taking AI technology and merging it with my background in language, specifically language assessment, so that we could provide a quick way to assess how well people speak, how well people can communicate, because the other opportunity or the other option is using humans who are often subjective. It's really difficult to train someone to be consistent. So that's who I am. That's what my passion is. Obviously, I love the outdoors. I really love hiking, and being able to merge passion and interest in business is something that I really enjoy. And so on the call, we've also invited Tony. Tony is the CEO of a company called CoDev, and I'll let Tony give a quick introduction. We've partnered together and worked using our language assessment software, and so we'll get into that in a little bit of what value that provides to Tony and his company.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Jacob. And just a little bit about CoDev and who we are. So as we go through some of these questions, you kind of know where to place us. But we're an offshore staff augmentation firm. We've been around since 2010. And in the last 6 years have really focused in on providing software developers to US companies. So our teams are out in the Philippines. And through that, we've created this partnership with Emmersion because language is core to what we do, what we offer our clients. And yeah, so it's been great. We have had several different types of business opportunities over the years, including like accounting, marketing, engineering, contact center. So we have dabbled in lots of different areas. We specialize with software developers, but I think this topic about how to apply automation to hiring, especially in language assessment, is very important for today. So happy to be here and hopefully help the discussion.
Well, awesome. So I'd like to kick it off by some of the things that we're noticing, especially as we work in the contact center space and those who are hiring those who have specific language needs for communicating with clients. One of the biggest factors that we've learned about the industry is turnover and the importance of hiring and recruiting. So we know that a lot of times the concern of many of the administrators who are working on recruiting and hiring for contact centers is fulfilling contracts that they have and getting, when they have a need from their clients, making sure they're getting people in the door and they're not introducing too many steps that are screening too many people out so that they can get them in and get their business rolling. That's been a particular focus for us is providing a language learning screening, focusing on speaking, that does just enough to make sure that the person and the people coming in can communicate and fulfill the job function, while not providing too much of a barrier to restrict the hiring manager's ability to fulfill their job of getting enough qualified candidates in. Tony, I'd love to hear with that particular, somewhat opposing forces, how have you managed that?
Yeah, no, definitely. And a little bit, I'll reach back to our pre-TrueNorth history before we engaged in any sort of automation. And I don't know if this is common and if you guys have experienced this or not, but we had recruiters individually subjectively rating candidates. We needed to have some sort of language rating. And so as candidates came in, went through our process, there was a point where they had an interview, and part of the results of that interview was a recruiter rating them basically 1 to 10. And, it was something that we needed, but the results weren't great. And it was time consuming, but more than the time, because we were putting it together with other screening mechanisms, more than the time, the problem is that the subjective results were just all over the board. So we went and looked at one point, we set a bar and said, okay, we only want to, we're going to screen out anyone who doesn't score at least an 8 out of 10. We want like top-notch language capability no matter what. And the next time we went and looked, our internal recruiters had scored every single candidate at a 9. There weren't any 10s, there weren't any 7s or 8s, they were all 9. And granted, they had incentives and things lined up around producing candidates, so there was some incentive issues there. But that really got us thinking and looking for a solution like this. And so that's how we've implemented it, we've worked with Emmersion to kind of pare down the test to the core numbers. They have a lot of great features that they provide for other academic institutions. That Jacob can tell you all about that. I don't even know what most of those scores mean. I couldn't describe them, but we did dial in on one score that is kind of a 0 to 10 scoring, and we put all of our candidates through it, and we were able to set a bar. We actually ended up with a bar of 6.5, and yeah, that's how. So I think this is answering your question, Jacob. If I missed it, just let me know. But yeah, that's how we're employing it today, and we're able to have. We got rid of the subjectivity. It's objective. It's fast. Usually, it's 15 minutes or less, and so that has been a game changer for us as far as when I take, because we're a staffing organization, so when we screen these people, we take them on to third-party clients and want to highlight their skills. And this allows us to do that in a way that's easy to understand. But yeah, we did have to tweak a little bit and pare it down to the most important features for our client, which really was that confidence. I'm going to be able to have a speaking conversation with this person before I invest more time in them in the process.
That's fantastic. I don't
know if I hit it or not, Jacob. Yeah, let me know.
No, for sure. And you actually brought up something that's really important for this conversation. There's a spectrum of need among contact centers and others who are in the recruiting candidate hiring space. For some like you, it sounds like language ability is more of a hygiene item. It's a bar that you need to pass, but there are several other pieces of information, technical ability, personality, other things that you're using as part of the screening process. And so for you, the simple objective ability to get in, get out, get the score we need, and move on is crucial. And that's something we're always thinking about for those types of clients. How can we make sure that we have a simple enough user experience, an immediate score that comes back with just enough information for the recruiter to do their job, to determine, can this person communicate at the bar that we require. But we also have the other spectrum of those for which language is a crucial part of the job. And in some cases, we have clients where language is the crucial skill that is being assessed. And for them, it is much more important to know, are the results that we're receiving valid? how do they compare with other standard measures that we use as a business? And how can we make sure that those coming in go through enough of a process so that when we do give that stamp of approval, yes, this person can communicate, that will lead to higher business outcomes from our customer standpoint, but it'll also increase retention. One of the surprising things we've found as we've been working with specifically clients where language is a crucial focus of their business is when they don't have a solid entrance, or like you said, potentially even a subjective way of measuring language when they come in, often whether it's a performance issue from the company side or it's a self-selecting out from the individual side, language is a factor. If they feel like they're not doing a good job, if they're always receiving high pressure and a lot of stress because they're just not up to par with this ability, then retention goes down. And that hurts the business. It's expensive to recruit and hire. And so being able to fill that pipeline with quality language of those who will perform and also feel good about themselves because they can perform. We found that does increase retention and it does help the bottom line of the businesses that we're working with. I'd love to hear, have you noticed anything about retention or the employee's ability to perform once they reach that minimum bar?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there are several things you pointed out in there. It's true that for us, it's a hygiene factor. And when I say that, I guess just to explain what I mean by that, if it's missing, the world stops, right? For us, our clients all work with each of our employees individually. We don't get in the middle and project manage or do anything like that. So they all have to be completely fluent. So if it's not there, game over. Once we pass that bar, though, for us working with software developers, it moves into technical knowledge and other things, so it kind of fades in the background. However, when I look at the other side, as we work to retain clients and make sure our clients are being served well, if there's issues and we get in, if there is a language issue, I do see a lot of the things you just mentioned, where a developer or an employee will say, I don't feel comfortable communicating in this situation. And so they may opt out or that sort of thing. And that has happened a lot less. And it's kind of nice things that don't come to mind because it means in the last couple of years, we haven't had them as much. But yeah, definitely in the past, it was more of an issue before we were testing well, where they would opt out and say, I'm not comfortable working for this client. The effort it takes me, even though they may have been basically fluent in English to get through that hiring process before, the effort it took them to constantly translate and communicate in English and work with clients added stress to the rest of the normal job stress we all experience to the point where it wasn't going to work for them. So yeah, definitely that resonates with our experience. But yeah, thankfully it's been pretty rare the last couple of years.
Great. Yeah, we've noticed the same thing with some of our other clients, and some of them are actually measuring the retention outcomes and seeing that retention is longer when they do have a stronger one. So your inclination, your anecdotal evidence definitely fits with what we're finding. Another piece that you mentioned earlier that I think would be really good to highlight for us now is, as we've been working specifically with contact centers, but also others who are in the recruiting candidate screening process for language ability, many of the employees or potential employees, candidates coming in, are looking to get a job immediately. They actually have multiple offers. They have multiple places that they can work. And for the person in charge of candidate screening and recruiting, when they get someone qualified coming in, they need to make sure that they are snatching them and giving them the best opportunity before they move somewhere else. The last thing you want to do when you're screening candidates is losing a qualified candidate to a competitor. So one of the things we've learned for our business and our side is we need to provide a language evaluation that's immediate. It's not good enough for us to say we can give you results in 24 hours or 24 to 48 hours. Potentially even in that time frame, they may have moved on and been hired and already started training at another place. So with our AI technology, we've focused on being able to provide instant feedback for every single item that we offer, and that conglomerates in an algorithmic process for us to, by the end of the 10 to 15 minute administration of the assessment, we've been crunching the numbers in the background, and we can provide immediately what the proficiency score is. So that if language, depending on where it falls on the requirements for the clients that we work with, it will not be a barrier to being able to offer a position on the spot, which again allows the recruiters to do what they are really trying to do and find the best quality candidates and get them in the door without losing them to someone else. I'd love to hear if that's been a factor.
I think, and I would agree, I think every recruiting organization, and I know we have, we do it regularly, we look at time to screen, is kind of what we call it. And, you know, we go through all the steps and add it up and say total screening time. That is important. I think that we have noticed a bit of a shift on that. And again, anyone else who's present who'd like to sort of chime in, I'd be interested to hear what others have noticed. I've noticed that the time to screen, while still important, is kind of giving way to some other factors as far as, can I perform screening steps where and how I want, right? And that's part of, you know, the COVID thing, everyone working from home. We have more and more candidates taking these assessments on their phones. We've had a few where it's kind of obvious they're in transit and they're still, you know, and it's kind of, where does this fit in my life? And then the time to screen kind of fades in the background again a little bit, because they're fitting it in their life where it makes sense. And then whatever time or effort it does take isn't as onerous on their schedule. And so we still do track that. That's obviously an important thing to know, that screening time. But yeah, I think that the other thing is having assessment that's cloud-based that they can hit from anywhere once they have that invite. And we have seen that used widely. So
that's great. I want to push on that point a little bit as well. We've really noticed a surge and a complete change in how businesses operate in the last 6 months. With the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a huge barrier to any sort of person-to-person interaction. And we find that there's many of the clients we work with, they provide person-to-person subjective, like you mentioned before, they would have one of their experts or employees be the ones to screen language. Not only is that not scalable, but also in the world of a global pandemic, having a person-to-person interaction just becomes unfeasible. So we've been leading the way with enabling digital transformation, enabling companies to minimize the need for any sort of in-person interaction, having a cloud-based solution that can be administered anywhere. It still has enough validity and clout to be useful, but it can also coexist with changing environment of the world, where you can't always have applicants coming in now into an office, but you may have to do these screening procedures at the place of the candidate's choosing, that's either at home or some other place where there's internet connection. How have you noticed a shift in the last 6 months with how you do your applicant screening process?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen a lot of those effects you've mentioned, especially in the lives of our clients. You know, we work primarily with small businesses, and so there's been a number of different ways those businesses have been affected. And so I hesitate to say a little bit that it hasn't maybe been as bad for us. We have been focused on remote workers since day one. We have had them in offices traditionally, so this is the first time our international teams are all at home. But our systems and processes have largely been built for remote communication and those sorts of things. So, you know, I think that's one of the reasons we were moving to automation and these types of tools before COVID happened, right? Last couple of years, we've been leveraging this. And so it's been fairly smooth. We haven't had to adopt a new assessment tool in the middle of COVID. We haven't really had to change our hiring practices, other than we did have some in-office things that we moved online, but everybody in our company has been doing video meetings for years. So I don't want to be disrespectful or non-empathic to those that have had really tough challenges in this situation. But but as far as how we've changed or needed to change, it's been fairly minimal.
Well, one of the things, flipping gears now as a client of CoDev, you've been on the forefront of pushing digital transformation and taking global talent and being able to pull global talent into our local environments using technology, using the internet for a long time now. And it's been fantastic to see, especially in our operations, we didn't have to shift very much. It was kind of like life continues as normal because we had a great partner who was already very well versed in the digital transformation industry and making sure that they're leveraging internet, global technology in order to get the right person with the right skills to do the right job for the right company. So everything you're saying, I think you're right. You guys have been leading that charge for a while now. And so when a global pandemic hits, we aren't scrambling. We're not worrying, how do we get the talent we need? We've already had a solution that's in place. And that's been, I think, one of the ways we've been able to continue to grow and be successful as a company.
Well, I definitely appreciate that. And it kind of brings to mind a question for you. As we're talking about implementing AI, what are ways maybe that you've seen other clients implementing this, since we're just in the discussion, that maybe you haven't seen us implementing yet, that you would suggest that we consider, or that is popular right now?
Yeah, 100%. So when you're talking about AI, it all relies on the availability and immediacy of data. So data streams and the different types of data, and learning which data tied together can tell a story and can be built together to build an AI system that is actually now targeting the purposes for its existence. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying your company, from what I understand, is using the single most important piece of data that our AI system test provides, which is overall language ability. That's a great start. As we begin implementing AI, and we're doing so with other clients, we have API solutions where we're being able to provide multiple sources of data in addition to overall language ability. They're beginning to piece those data together to actually affect business outcomes. For example, you and other companies have mentioned that you've done an initial calibration process with the assessment that we provide, where you're able to say, this is the cut point. This is the area in terms of language ability when we provide it on a spectrum that we find those above this will succeed and those below this often won't succeed. An initial calibration is great, and we are happy, and we work with many clients to set up that initial cut point of what's important. But the needs of a company oftentimes shift, or depending on the more data, more information you have, that initial cut point, while good, could be improved. One of the ways that we're using AI specifically with other clients is to track together with the initial calibration and the cut points that are there, and using data such as, was this person hired, not hired? How did they score? How did they perform on the assessment? And then building back a feedback loop saying, you initially set 6.5 as your cut point, but did you know, using the data and the system now that we've been able to collect and use, if you adjusted that cut point here and here, or even for specific positions, as we're learning that, if you're hiring for this type of level and there's different job categories or levels, there may be different cut points that would actually prove to be better in terms of business outcomes, in terms of retention, in terms of bringing the people in that actually can fulfill the job function. So those are a couple of the examples of how implementing AI and using our system more broadly can actually really affect and provide a much more successful solution in all aspects of the business. And our goal as a company is to provide a product that helps you accomplish your business outcomes. And we know, especially in a lot of service industries, contact centers, margins are hard and they're low. And being able to reduce cost of candidate screening or increase retention, even a little bit, actually can go a very long way toward the success of that business.
Yeah, no, a lot of that resonates with me. And as I think about, we do have different positions. We focus on software developers, but we still do have a handful of clients that are doing more contact center, and I mentioned accounting type work. And they do come with different bars. And right now we are manually adjusting. We've done it probably without your help. So we should figure out ways to leverage data that you've got, available, and even our own data and what we've been generating. I don't know that we look at that much, but we have positions where, we screen out anyone below a 9, and it's 9 to 10, and that's the only ones that are going to be qualified. So it would be advantageous to us if we find out the real number should be 8.7. We would maybe get 5% more candidates and be able to fill those positions much more quickly, or hit a higher volume sooner, which would definitely hit the bottom line.
Awesome.
So,
that's great feedback. We should definitely work on that. One of the other areas that I'll mention, and I'm hesitant to mention this because I don't always like to sell on hopium or future products coming out, but one of the things that we are focusing on, especially as an AI company, is, again, seeing what reliable and valid stories we can tell with the data that we're receiving. We receive thousands of data points for each individual learner for an attest event. We use a pretty robust speech recognition system that can tell us on a sound, we call it phoneme in linguistics, a phoneme by phoneme level, how well that phoneme matches the prompt. We can piece that together in syllables and morphemes and in larger units. We can get information about pronunciation, about fluency, about insertions of ms and us, and all of that provides us information, and we're learning how to use and tie that information to provide the best possible information for someone who's trying to make a hiring decision. So right now, we mentioned before, we give an overall language ability score that correlates really highly with someone's ability to communicate. But there are many aspects of communication, such as pronunciation. Someone could be a fantastic communicator and struggle with proper pronunciation, which makes it difficult for them to be understood. On the flip side, someone can have perfect pronunciation, their fluency may be low, which makes any interaction with them take 50% longer than it should, which could be frustrating for the team. There's someone who could have great pronunciation, great fluency, their grammar's off, and their inability to use grammar often can cause miscommunication and be misleading or cause other problems. And so our ability to then pinpoint the subcomponents of language, such as pronunciation, fluency, grammar, vocabulary, in addition to their overall language, could be another factor that could just provide you more information to then make a better hiring decision. Or whether it actually impacts the hiring decision, it also could be information for you and the employee as they are brought on to say, you're good, you can communicate, you can function. This is one of your weak areas. And so for your success and for our success as a business, this is an area that we want you to improve. So those are two specific things, using AI, using the data that's coming in, and being able to tell another story that we're really focusing on to help you be more successful as a business.
Yeah, those sound like great features. Understanding you're not promising us anything, but no, we look forward to seeing those kind of come to fruition and figuring out how we can leverage some of those. I think we've talked a little bit in the past about this training, working in some kind of future training product or whatever makes sense for us. And I'm not sure that's a fit for our business specifically. However, some of that feedback and the tips you just mentioned, I think anyone could make use out of. I think we could make use out of those. And it's in the framework of any sort of regular employee one-on-one situation where you're giving them career feedback, giving them advice on how they can improve, being able to give feedback on English or language capability in general. We only use English. I know you guys are probably in other languages and that sort of thing as well. But for us, helping that English improve incrementally over time while they're with us does have a big effect on not just their retention as employees, but for us, that directly relates to client retention. So obviously important.
Well, something that I've actually really respected about your business, and I think makes us great partners, because we share a philosophy in this, is it's really easy, especially when your main value proposition and resource are people, to treat those people as resources and numbers, and to forget that they're people. And part of our job as business owners, as providers, is to make sure that we are positively improving the situation of everyone that comes to our doors. And I've seen that specifically with your company. When you present and when you work with your people that you hire, they're not just resumes. they're people with stories who care. And so being able to provide them more information that helps them grow in their life is something that's really important to us. And we know that that's really important to you as well. And then being able to, there's obviously a connection when people know that they're valued and they're treated well and they're respected, then yeah, they want to stay. They want to continue with the company. They see that there's mutual respect, and that increases retention. That also leads to better business outcomes. And so one of our greatest philosophies, which again I know you have as well, and we've really shared that, is treating people that come in as people and providing them as much value while building the business and while providing the business value as well. So I just wanted to mention that as something we really respect about your company.
Well, I definitely appreciate that, and it always is nice to have someone recognize one of your core competencies and company values, right? And I do think that's something we share. As we were kind of talking about other languages and that sort of thing, I think it's been a while since I've been updated on kind of your range. And also, I'm looking at the clock. We just have, I think, 5 or 10 minutes left here. If this is an okay venue for that, I'm interested to kind of get a quick update on kind of where this automation is being applied, what languages, what geographical areas, and maybe some of these are places I should think about generating some business in. This is my reason for asking, sir.
Yeah, great. Well, definitely the most popular language that's being learned right now in the world is English. There's actually more people learning English outside of English-speaking countries than in, including children who are learning it as a mother tongue. They're approaching and actually surpassing now 2 billion English learners in the world. And so we've begun and started, and most of our focus is on English, helping people use it as the lingua franca of the world. But we know that this still is a very culturally diverse world that we live in. English goes a long way, but it's not the only language spoken or used. We have a lot of clients in Latin America, in Philippines, in Europe, who support companies and clients where German, Italian, French, Spanish are the languages that are important for them to know. Sometimes there's a combination of them, and they need highly specialized people who know English and Spanish so that they can be versatile and function in the job function that they have. And so as a company, while we focus on English, we do offer many other languages. So we currently have our automated speaking test in Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, French, and German, in addition to English. And we are close. We're actually running calibrations and beta tests right now in Italian, Russian, German, Mandarin, and Korean. Soon after that, we will actually focus on Tagalog and potentially Cebuano, which I know for your business in the Philippines could be something interesting to look at as well. So that's a quick update of the languages that we offer.
That's super cool to hear, and yeah, exciting to see that opportunity.
One last thing that I wanted to mention, and I know it's potentially not as relevant for your particular use case. As we're working with different clients, we've found that the larger a client is, the larger of an operation and the multiple locations that they run, the more important it is for them to have an objective measure of language that's automated. We've already talked a little bit about the subjective factor when you're using humans to assess language. Multiply that subjective factor by different individuals. So not only is it really hard to train a person to be objective and consistent in their language evaluations, but then training a group of people who aren't in the same location to rate the same as each other is a really big challenge. And so one of the things that we've really focused on is providing an automated objective measure that can be used across multiple locations, so that employees that are coming in for this contact center are equivalent and being measured with the same set of criteria as employees that are coming in for this location. And so as you grow, as you increase in locations, potentially looking at a solution that will help the consistency and making sure that the value provided from one location equals the value in another is another focus and an area where we've been really successful.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think we've started to feel that. So we have 4 offices in the Philippines now, and right, different management staff, and we are using similar processes throughout, but there is variation that comes up. And again, some of these things that we've already set up, we're getting benefits that we don't even think about. You know, we've been using this automation for a long time, so I think we do get some of that benefit, and it's, yeah, definitely helpful as you go to set up a new location to know you can just put these same tools in place and have the same quality.
Awesome. Well, I think, unless you have other questions, that wraps up a lot of what we wanted to share about how we can automate language screening, specifically for those who are in the candidate recruiting, applicant screening process.
Perfect. Well, I just appreciate the opportunity to come and join in. I've learned a number of things today, so well worth my time. I hope it is for everyone else as well. No
Okay,
problem.
thanks everyone.
All right.
Take care, guys.
See y'all later. Appreciate it. Bye.
Okay.